It's the Fitness Lab Pittsburgh podcast, a new episode every week. A podcast about movement, part of making your life complete. Fitness Lab Pittsburgh, aka FitLabPGH, brings you interviews with people in the Pittsburgh area who understand movement is part of what makes life complete. Looking for a new movement idea or just want to hear interesting stories about people who make movement a priority? This is the podcast for you. Whether you consider the gym, dojo, or fitness studio your third place, or just want to learn more about movement, activity, and fitness to enhance your life, give FitLabPGH a listen. We interview locals in the Pittsburgh area who make Pittsburgh a great place to move. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Google Play, or check out our website for other subscription options. Subscribing is free and gives you notifications when we release new episodes. Each podcast episode will be long enough to pique your interest and short enough to hold your attention. Have an idea for an episode? Know somebody we should interview? Or just want to connect with us? Drop us an email, fitlabpgh@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter or Instagram at fitlabpgh. Already a fan of FitLabPGH? Check out our sister podcast, Moving to Live. Moving to Live is a podcast for movement professionals and amateur aficionados. Moving to Live offers weekly interviews with movement professionals featuring topics from career development to coaching tips and education resources to advice for parents of student athletes. We look forward to hearing from you, and we hope you enjoy our next interview, starting now. FitLabPGH and our sister podcast, Moving to Live, firmly believe movement should be treated as a lifestyle, not just an activity. That's why FitLabPGH, in addition to our podcasts, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, releases a 1-minute movement tip lifestyle hack video, and every Thursday we do a FitLab Pittsburgh Features, a written feature of a mover, two-legged or four-legged, in the Pittsburgh area. If you like what we do, leave us some feedback on Apple Podcasts or any other podcast app that you listen to our podcast on. FitLabPGH back with another podcast. Today's guest is somebody who we earlier featured on FitLab Pittsburgh Features. We'll make sure that's in the show notes. And oftentimes when we have somebody fill something out for FitLab Pittsburgh Features, we realize they've got more to tell than just in 7 or 8 questions. We're here with today's guest. I have not told her, but the pressure is on because every time we hold an interview in a coffee shop, it's a good interview. So we're here at Biddle's Escape yet again. I think this is the 5th or 6th time we've done an interview at Biddle's Escape. All of them have been good. We are with Grace Kosko. Grace is a lifetime mover. Her real job, she's a physical therapy assistant, but if that's not enough, she's done a variety of other things. So one of the questions I often ask for my other podcast, Moving to Live, is what's your 30-second elevator spiel of what you do? So you see somebody comes up to you when we're done interviewing. They say, well, who are you? What do you do? What do you tell them?
That is a difficult question. Let's see. I am in the process of reinventing myself. I am a former hairstylist and became a yoga instructor, love learning about the human body, and I'm now in massage therapy school after completing physical therapist assistant school last year. So I'm a collector of certifications and licenses.
And I may use that collector of certifications in the future. Thinking down the line, do you suspect in the future, after doing the massage therapy, there will be additional certifications coming along?
Possibly strength and conditioning coach.
And I think one of the things Grace was mentioning before we started recording is her boyfriend is also a collector of certifications, and he's got some of his own in his business, and he also said he's branched out into the health and wellness field also.
Very much so. He's a geek. All about nutrition.
So pressure is on. If you get to know Grace, you have to keep up with her with the certifications. My favorite question I always want to ask people from FitLab Pittsburgh is, are you a Pittsburgh native? If so, why are you still here? If not, what brought you to Pittsburgh?
I am a Pittsburgh native, grew up in a suburb about 30 minutes outside of the city in North Huntingdon. I don't know why I'm still in Pittsburgh. I would love to leave, but I just don't know of anywhere to go that I love more than Pittsburgh.
And I know this is a podcast about movement. I always want to ask people, obviously now as a yoga instructor working as a physical therapy assistant, you're going after, I believe you said at some point, Strong First, which is a kettlebell training certification, which is no joke. Were you active growing up, or were you somebody who's like, yeah, I don't like being active? And kind of as a follow-up to that, were you active because mom and dad said, get the hell out of the house and don't come back until dinner time, or because mom and dad were active? If you had brothers and sisters, they were active, and you kind of got dragged along with them?
So my family is not an active family. My mom did tell me to get out of the house and not come home till dinner. My fitness journey didn't start till I was about 18. I had attended cosmetology school and gained weight because I ate from the vending machine on every 10-minute break that we had, and ballooned up to 200 pounds. And I said, nope, this has got to stop. So stopped drinking pop, started eating better, started attending a fitness class just that was local in our neighborhood, and eventually made my way to an official gym, started taking a yoga class. I loved the yoga teacher. She worked at a yoga studio, became a yoga instructor. So it was just this little bits here and there that I collected, and then found that I really love weight training as well. I'm a naturally flexible person, but I noticed I was starting having some aches and pains, and I thought, maybe I need to do the other end of things, and started weightlifting, dabbled a little bit in CrossFit, but we have our own gym downstairs with kettlebells because you can do so much with one little weight, and that's why I'm pursuing that certification now.
And I'm curious, people that you knew when you were growing up, or maybe when you first went to cosmetology school, that you still keep in touch with, do they think you're crazy? Do they love what you're doing? Do they look at you and say, what the heck, you're taking years off your life?
I would hope they think that. I'd love to be an inspiration to my friends and people that I know. I don't think they think I'm crazy. They just let me go do my own thing. I try to impart that to them as well. I haven't really convinced many people, although I do have two friends that wanted to attend Taste of Fitness that was hosted at the Ace Hotel in East Liberty. So we got to do that together, and that was super fun.
Thinking now in your fitness journey, as you said, not super active growing up, figured it out at 18, because I know a lot of people don't. They just continue eating the way they did growing up, thinking vending machine food is good. Looking back on it now, a few years later, what do you think made the biggest difference, or made you say, I need to do something about this?
Honestly, it probably wasn't until I met my boyfriend that I really had my come to Jesus moment with food and started figuring out why I was so emotionally connected to food. That was the big component for me. My mom always had baked goods in the house, home baked goods, not Little Debbie snacks. And it was dessert after every meal. I was also part of the Clean Plate Club. So as I started living on my own, I started cooking from Cooking Light magazine, so I was able to help myself out with that. But yeah, until you go down the emotional path and the mental path of why you're eating the way you are and making the decisions that you are, I don't think there can really be change, and that was what did it for me.
And I think what a lot of people don't hit on with that is it's different for everybody. There's not one magic thing. I know we had a earlier podcast guest who transitioned from running to, he was in school and gained some weight and then started cycling because his dad and his brother, who were both physical therapists, said, hey, you need to do something. And I asked the question, I said, did they talk to you about your health? He said, no, my brother just guilted me into it. So I think it's important for some people, that is what it is, like peer pressure, and for other people it's figuring out what's the emotional attachment, and what works for you doesn't necessarily work for me or somebody else. I know for me, my journey with food was when I made the mistake of taking a nutrition class in college. It's like, ooh, some of this stuff isn't really good for me. So I still like to eat the whole blueberry pie, but it's probably after doing an 8 or 9 hour activity where it's like, okay, I need calories. I'm curious also with the progression with fitness. One of the things that people often find, they're 18, 19, 20, they get in school, they're out on their own. It's like, okay, I got school, I've got maybe work, and I've got lots and lots of free time. But as you've probably figured out, as you get older, as you collect more certifications, and I know from chatting with you, you have at least one dog and at least one cat, things start to pick up. How do you find the time to make sure that you stay active, or are there times you say, I just can't do this? Because a lot of people say, boy, I'd love to work out, or I'd love to watch what I eat, but I just don't have time. It's easier to go out to eat. So a lot of times hearing what other people do is beneficial.
Yeah, that I don't understand why time gets less as you get older. And it's trying to optimize it as best you can. So I try not to burden myself with the need to exercise. I fit it in where I can. So Mondays are completely obliterated. I don't even think about it. Tuesdays are my day off, so I fit it in where I can there. Instead of sitting on the couch, I'll sit on the floor and I'll do either some stretches or some muscle activation stuff, taking my dog for a walk. Crawling around on the floor is a great movement. So if I don't really have a ton of time, I just have maybe 15 minutes before work, I'll just head down into the basement and just do some animal movement kind of stuff, or I'll cycle for 10 minutes just to get the blood flowing. Parking far away from the grocery store, taking the stairs, the normal things that you hear as well. And just kind of realizing that you don't have to block an hour out to go to the gym to fit movement into your life.
We're talking with Grace Kosko. I think from what she's just described over the last few minutes, she really is treating movement as a lifestyle. From hearing you mention crawling around on the floor and doing animal movements, I have a suspicion at some point in your future, the MoveNat certification is going to become one of the things you do. I know for Moving to Live, we interviewed Jenny Ploss from New Mexico as a physical therapist who's actually using MoveNat in the clinic she works with. She was actually introduced to it by another physical therapist. And you hit on another thing that I don't think a lot of people take into account as far as making movement part of their lifestyle. You said, we've got a gym in our basement and a couple of kettlebells or a TRX machine or something like that. Then you don't blow the 15, 20, 30 minutes going to the gym, the 10 minutes to park, the 5 minutes of BSing with the front desk staff, not in a bad way. You've got 20 minutes. If you've got 20 minutes or you've got 10 minutes or 5 minutes, you've always got it there. And it's like, I've got kettlebells upstairs. I've got kettlebells downstairs. I've got kettlebells in my on my patio in the backyard. And it's really, I think you've hit on something that enough people don't do. Get some stuff for home because that's beneficial.
Yeah, we have a basket in our living room that's filled with kind of recovery stuff. So balls, resistance bands are everywhere. My boyfriend has hand weights in his office, and we have our gym downstairs. And in the summertime, of course, the deck is filled with stuff. And we actually have a climbing rope from the bottom of the deck up to the top. I got stuck on it.
Maybe next time you could build a climbing wall on the deck also. That's one of the things that I would like to do.
That's definitely on our list. Climbing is one of our new hobbies that we started last year, and definitely love that.
So I'm curious, you're somebody who's discovered moving relatively late in life. We could say that if you went 18 years not moving consciously. Pittsburgh area, one of the reasons we started FitLab Pittsburgh is there are all these movement opportunities that people don't think about because it might be out of their neighborhood, or over a bridge, or through a tunnel. So a lot of times when we interview people for FitLab Pittsburgh, we ask, you got 3 things that you can do in Pittsburgh. You've got a friend who's a mover who comes into town. What do you do? What are your 3 favorite ways to move in Pittsburgh?
Hike down the street in Frick Park. There's endless trails. We have our favorite ones that we used when we were training for our backpacking trip to the Grand Canyon. I wanted to find as many hills as I could, so we did that. And then when we got back, we kind of branched out, and I was amazed at how many different trails there are. And get off the walking trails and go take the biking trails. That's the real challenge. Love climbing in Pittsburgh. I think it's really boomed. The climbing wall down the street has been a staple in Pittsburgh for a while, and then Ascend opened in Southside. I think that the mental benefit as well as the physical benefit of climbing is phenomenal. So I always try to take people there. And then possibly a yoga class or something like that over at 1.1. Love the stuff they do there.
I'm always curious when people say they found climbing. Any desire to climb outdoors, or do you climb outdoors also, or are you a gym climber?
I'm definitely a gym climber for right now. I think the idea of climbing, I like the holds, and I don't trust rock. I don't trust myself on rock yet.
One of the things that's always important is know your strengths and weaknesses, and when it's taking a risk and when it's like not doing that. I know I've got a friend who skydives and does wingsuit flying. It's like, I've got no interest. I know he would hook me up and do it, but I don't do that.
I've gone skydiving twice, and I would do it again, but always strapped to somebody. They know what they're doing. I don't.
I know one of the interesting things that we've talked about with various guests before is even though there are a tremendous number of movement opportunities in the Pittsburgh area, Pittsburgh isn't like, for example, Denver, where you think of it as being an active movement place. There are pockets of people Maybe that's the neighborhood. Maybe that's our history as an industrial city. How do you find with the people that you just come in contact, not necessarily your close friends, but maybe your coworkers, because what you've described, what you do is just basically part of your social life is you like to move. You and your boyfriend like to move, which makes it a lifestyle. What do your friends think about, or more importantly, your coworkers who should be involved in the movement type thing when you say, I'm taking a yoga class, or I'm going to do this strong first thing, or I'm going backpacking in the Grand Canyon? I know some people say, why? And other people say, that's awesome. I can't wait to do that.
The physical therapist I work with is of the same mindset as I am. She actually did a big trip to Banff and Glacier National Park, so she's right up there. And as far as my friends, I think they're happy that I'm doing what I love and what I like to do. Maybe they don't know that they can as well.
And along the same lines, as a physical therapy assistant, what do your patients think? Because I know there's always times to converse with patients in between treatment times and things, and a lot of times you find some really interesting conversations. What do they think?
They're usually the ones that say I'm crazy, although we do have some climbers that come in for therapy for their shoulder or wrist. I have a patient right now who is an acro yogi, so we're trying to get her back into a little more strength and stuff with that. And then you just have your people that are just regular, just kind of deconditioned a little bit is maybe the way to say it, that they're like, I can't believe you do that. I could never do that. And then I talk to them and say, yes, you can. You just have to believe in yourself, and you got to go through the correct progressions. It's not like someone's going to go out and do wall climbing the first time.
I know when I've traveled around the country and mentioned to friends of mine or people that I meet that I'm from Pittsburgh, immediately what often comes to mind is, oh, wow, that's near Ohiopyle where there's phenomenal whitewater kayaking. Or they may say, there's some really good trails out in the Laurel Highlands. Sometimes we like to get away from Pittsburgh. You've got some free time coming up, for example, say you've got a week or 2 weeks. Where's your favorite movement or your dream movement vacation place to go to?
Well, locally, we love going up to Cook Forest in the Allegheny National Forest area. On my list is to actually go south into West Virginia a little bit and maybe check out the Dolly Sods or Blackstone Park or something like that. Love going out to Ohio to... I'm going to forget the name of it. Nope, it's off my list.
That's the problem when we put you on the spot.
Yeah, somewhere in Columbus. They have zip lining and the canopy tours up in the trees, and that's super duper fun. You actually stay up in the trees. You don't zip line to the ground each time, and they have an obstacle course up in the trees. That's really fun. So a question then is, have you tried Go Ape in North Park yet? I did. It was super fun, but I did not like that you had to come down to the ground every time. I ended up with wood chips in my pants, which wasn't so much fun. But super dream vacation. I actually just read a book about the Appalachian Trail, and I'm finishing Wild about the Pacific Crest Trail, and I would really love to push my boundaries and do some long-term backpacking. Favorite movement activity that you've done in the past, or favorite movement vacation that you've done in the past, and kind of as a follow-up to that, would you do it again? So my favorite vacation, I've been thinking about it a lot with our lovely Pittsburgh weather, did a Budokan yoga weekend, or actually it was a week in Tulum, Mexico. That was fantastic. Budokan yoga is a blend of martial arts, yoga, and kind of, they call it life science. It's a lot of mental thinking and meditation and stuff, and it really teaches you to push your boundaries. And we also do some grappling, and that was some really good stuff. We have a kata, so we have a routine that we do that you get to practice, and it's like you do this there and you do this here, and they teach you how. But then they also do freestyle grappling, and that will definitely trigger some things for you if you don't like feeling trapped, and then what's your reaction to feeling trapped. So it pushed my boundaries, but in a really good way, and it teaches you how to apply what you learned there in your real life. We're talking with Grace Kosko. I think one of the interesting things when I talk to people who found movement as young adults is then there are a few years later, they look back and they look at their, say, 18-year-old Grace. If you could give yourself one or two pieces of information that 18-year-old Grace might have benefited from or taken away from it, what would you tell her? Have less fear. go out and try new things. Don't stick with the same old stuff that works. And just spread your wings and go.
I think that's a great way to finish off the interview. Spread your wings and go and try new things. Grace will have show notes so people can find you on Instagram. Thanks for taking time to talk to FitLabPGH.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of FitLabPGH, brought to you by Moving to Live. Intro and exit music is Marathon Man by Jason Shaw. Check out the show notes for contact info for our latest guests, links to other information mentioned in the episode, and links to our sister podcast, Moving to Live. Moving to Live is a podcast about movement and exercise for professionals and amateur aficionados. Moving to Live offers topics from career development to coaching tips and education resources to advice for parents of student athletes. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Google Play, or check out our website for other subscription options. Your free subscription gets you notified when we release a new episode. Questions, comments, suggestions? Email us at fitlabpgh@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at fitlabpgh and like us on Facebook. If you enjoy our podcasts, please tell your friends about us and consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. Make FitLabPGH a go-to place to learn more about movement in the Pittsburgh area. Until next time, keep on moving.